Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a bit of a test. Afternoon tea with RV. I'm Richard Vobes. That's not the official name, by the way. At the moment, still don't know what we're going to call this. This is a little afternoon show that I'm putting together. I wanted to do something a little bit fun and jolly in the afternoons on a fairly regular basis. At the moment, don't know if this is going to be daily or as and whenly or Monday, Wednesday, Friday-ly or alternative to the English channel. But anyway, just trying some stuff to get us through the winter, particularly on these days. Today has been a pretty blowy day here in the southeast of England. It may be wherever you are slightly different. Who knows? I don't. But the show is designed to go out in the afternoons. Late afternoon, when you might be sitting down, snuggling up to some afternoon tea. So I've got this lovely teapot that was sent in by Lisa Fox. Thank you very much, Lisa, a few years ago now, but we have kept it. So I'm going to have some afternoon tea. Just pour that out. I want to get the overall effect in there. How delicious is that? And this is all about England, and Julia came up with the idea of the English slice, which I quite like as well. We haven't really come up with it, or tea time tattle, or tea time teaser, or tea time tittle tattle, or tea time titter, or tea time telegram, or tea time. Well, actually, we've been going through the dictionary, coming up with all sorts of wacky names for this little piece of English slice. But at the moment, afternoon tea with RV is what I've settled on this episode. Next week, it'll be something totally different, but or whenever the next show is. So, without further ado, we want to crack on. We've got bits and bobs. I'm aiming to make this a magazine show so that we can have lots of things going all at once. We want your contributions as well, but I'll tell you more about that as we get this show underway. This one, embryonic first show, as it were, so give us a little bit of a break. You can, of course, put comments in down below in the comment box. That's where it is. So, now, one of the things I like to do, it's not terribly English as such, because nations all over the world will have done this, but I've been doing it for a while. I like doing it. It's very healthy, I think, better than buying the commercial stuff. And that's a bit of bread making. So throughout today's show, I want to show you some of the stages, because people often ask me, how do I do it? I thought I'd show you in little stages. So let's start with stage one of some bread making. We've got to nip down to the kitchen. There is nothing nicer than cooking on a range. Mine is an SE Ironheart, as regular viewers will know. Beautiful thing, wood-burning stove with two hot plates up here and an oven just here, the other side of this little grill thing. Now, I'm going to be baking some bread. It's not a particularly English thing to do, but English people used to do it en masse, didn't they? Or they went to the local baker instead of just relying on the Chorley wood process, I think it's called, in which mass-produced bread, which isn't particularly tasty or nice, is now produce, and most people don't think about the sort of bread that they eat. They think it's very healthy for them, but actually a lot of the goodness has been taken out. Most of the nutrients and minerals have been taken out, and then some have been put back, but not by any means all. Anyway, so I was very lucky today. My friend Tim popped round. He'd been away, and he came in. He said, "Oh, I saw this and I thought of you." And it is here, if I can get this as I'm holding it on my phone, Shipton Mill organic spelt flour, wheat flour, organic spelt. So I thought, well, thanks very much, Tim, very kind of you. I better make a loaf. I've got back into baking bread. I used to bake bread quite a bit. Then, for some reason, I had a whole load of them that weren't working, and I lost my confidence, and that's a very bad thing to happen. So when I'm baking bread, I usually use, let's find it, a little tin like this. Now, I found that the recipe that I used to use, which was 500 grams of flour, would make the things like spelt overflow when it rose. It would rise up and it would just come up there and then start to seep down the other side. Now, it's either too much sugar in the yeast or too much yeast in the flour, or something was wrong. So I've reduced the ingredients now to using 400 grams. And I've just sort of dropped the other ingredients accordingly. So we'll see how that goes. So what I normally would use then is in here a mixing bowl. I've got in this mixing bowl 300 grams of the flour. I've got about 8 grams of the yeast. I've put a little sugar, about a level tablespoon, into, and I'm using 250 millilitres of water, so that the sugar will excite the yeast and bring the yeast into bubbling mode pretty quickly. And then also into my mix down here, I add a bit of salt, which I think that helps. I forget what the salt does. People can tell me. Anyway, they're the 4 ingredients that you need: flour, yeast, salt, and sugar. Oh, and water. So 5 ingredients. So yeah, nothing else. Honestly, just pots and pans to put it in. So I'm now going to mix that up, and then we'll see shortly how, once it's mixed up and put into a tin. Well, it'll rise first and then be knocked back and then put into a tin, and then it'll be ready to go in the oven, and we'll just see how it goes. I love a bit of baking. It gives me something to do in the evenings. The Essie is getting up to temperature. I'm feeling extremely hot, so we'll come back in a mo and see how we've done. Bing, there we are. Turn the phone off. Yes, so there we are. That's part 1 of my down in the kitchen. Very English kitchen. That's what I like to think about that. So bit of bread making there. We're going to come back, see how I get on, as I suggested in that. Now, part of the show, I want to add in, as I say, it's a sort of magazine-y type thing. Now, I don't know if this is going to work. It may not work. You may think it's not the kind of thing you get on YouTube. Maybe it's an experiment too far. Who knows? Now, one of the things I want to do is to have fantasy moments in the show. Yeah, we can all have fantasy. We love a bit of fantasy. And this is where you can take part in it, because I'd love to know what you think as well. We're going to start with where we live, fantasy houses. Imagine you've got all the money in the world. You can buy whatever you like. You can be in whatever. We're going to design, between us, a fantasy house. And we're going to start at the very front door. I'm not worried for the moment what it looks like or where it's set. We can come to that. Every room can be completely different. In other words, if you had, I don't know, a big palace on the front entrance, the next room could be a tiny little, I don't know, whatever it is, little farmhouse, or it could be a log cabin, for all I know. And then the next room can be totally different, however you want to decor it. Now, to get us started, the lovely Julia came in and helped me last night, and we were talking about this fantasy house. We both had different ideas about the entrance hallway. How would that look? So let's have a look now what Julia and I came up with when we started our fantasy house. So, the fantasy house, we're going to start at the front door.
Righto.
We'll do all the garden and we'll do the exterior, because really given huge amounts of that. Plus the fact it's a bit like the TARDIS in Doctor Who, in which this can be as many rooms and whatever, because it's fantasy, isn't it?
Fantasy, yeah, it's in the mind.
So, you come up the driveway or whatever it is, or off the street or off the pavement, however, and the door opens, and the first room that you go into is whatever you want it to be. But we'd have to have a shared door, we'd have to have the same room, is what I'm not.
As the entryway.
Yeah, can't suddenly you say, it goes into the ballroom and I go into the library. No, it goes into the hall.
Obviously, we need a cloakroom.
Yes.
Just to
the side.
Large area to the side where,
But we're talking about the hall. Yeah,
okay.
The door opens and we're in the hall.
We're in the hall.
Exactly. So in your fantasy world, if you could have anything, whatever you like, what would it be?
Well, I picture a kind of a farmhouse entry hall with, all the doors coming off, nice wide floor space with, I don't know, either those thick, really oaky smelling floorboards.
Oh yeah.
Or stone floor, but I like the oaky smell.
So is this, when you say farmhouse, it's a timber framed farmhouse, right? Okay. So is it small or big? Or?
Well, it's big.
Okay.
It's like a large cottage.
Right. Well, that's narrowed it down a bit.
Well, do you?
So
remember,
what have we? Yeah, go on.
Do you remember when we were in Lee on the Solent the other day?
Yes.
And we went. We saw the old barracks and things like that, and we asked the gentlemen who were working on their car or something. As we walked away from them, we walked past the house, the old captain's house.
Yes.
And remember, we looked in, and the entry hall was just as I imagined, kind of this.
And as they can't remember doing
No,
it,
but
you
it
have to
was-
describe it.
It was wide, and
Yeah.
with the, lots of doors coming off and jaunty angles.
So what
and
was it?
stuff.
What in your fantasy house, your hallway, is it decorated with? What's in there? What furniture? If there's wallpaper, or how does it look?
Rustic farmhouse.
Right. So any furniture? Is there a hat stand?
Hat stand, shoe rack. You've got to have your wellies. Maybe those little homemade wooden spike things that you put your wellies on.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah, you've got to have the umbrella stand.
Umbrella stand. Yeah,
hat
definitely.
stand on the top, and your cloakroom. Yeah, you've got to have a mirror in the hallway.
Of course.
Got to have a mirror.
Long mirror, short mirror. What kind of mirror?
Long mirror would be best.
Yeah.
At least at one end of it.
Yeah.
Maybe opposite the door.
Okay. That sounds all
So you can
right.
check yourself out before you
Go
wreck
in.
yourself
Yeah.
out. Apparently,
Before what?
you wreck yourself. It's a saying.
It's a
Check
saying.
yourself before you wreck yourself.
So, over my head. So if somebody knocks on the door, you can check that you're looking all right before you open the door. Is that it, or before you go out and paint the town red?
Either.
Yes, because if I'm going out to paint the town red, I've always got overalls on and a lovely pot of paint and a brush, of course.
Got to make sure
And
it's
goggles.
covered all of your lovely garments underneath.
Exactly, I wouldn't want that. So I'm thinking mine. I don't know. See, I love timber frame houses, and that would be really good. But if it was like a fantasy house that I could have,
Yeah.
I'm thinking slightly bigger.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking a hallway of a Georgian property, not too dissimilar to. We've been reading a book called Georgiana.
Yeah.
A
The
period.
Duchess of Devonshire.
Exactly, a Palladio style thing. So it would be maybe a marble floor, white and black marble. I don't know whether you'd have wallpaper as such, but you'd probably have a white wall of some description with perhaps a dado. Is it a dado rail?
Dado rail?
It's not a dodo rail anyway.
Not a dodo.
And I wouldn't really want animals' heads,
No.
poked out.
I don't see that in my farmhouse style.
No, instead of their heads, I'd just have the rest of the animal coming out as if you see the other half of it. No, I wouldn't. That would be silly. So
So you'd have the donkey's ass.
exactly, a big hippopotamus, and you could pull the anyway. So then, yes, you'd have the somewhere for your umbrella and all those things. And I need to sort of get my head round. Well, what period it is that, even though it's a Georgian house in Palladio style, I wouldn't want to decorate it in that time, which I know is a bit weird. Why wouldn't you want to do that? But I think I would be trying to decorate it. What would it look like if it had been around for a long time and we're in the 30s and 40s? Because, I like that sort of era. So that's probably where I'm going. But I need to think more on the exact items. But yeah, there might be some sort of, not a chandelier, but a nice little bulby thing on a wire.
Bulby thing on a wire.
Yeah,
Right?
that lights up the thing. It would be electric, probably an electric, old-fashioned bulb, that you're forever changing. So, anyway, that's...
So to the degree that you'd have a little ornate stepping stool to the side, so you could keep pulling it out.
Oh,
step
yes,
up
it's
to
probably a
change it.
fold-up ladder, one of these little
yes.
fold-up ladders from a little closet on the side, like the cloakroom you were mentioning,
Yeah.
about where all the boots, when you open that and you get the waft of bad boots. Although, I imagine that would be actually at the back of the house, the boot room and all of that.
That's true.
Anyway, we will develop this theme as the weeks go on for all the different rooms.
Just to note, I think the front door has to be a medieval style.
We'll come to the door in another episode. Well, time for another cup of tea whilst I think about all that wonderful stuff on the fantasy house. Lovely. Now, it looks like, oh yes, for a moment there I thought the microphone wasn't working, but that can happen I'm recording this, just so you know, almost as if it's live. It isn't live, but I've got all the bells and whistles and things, it's ever so complicated. Right, so I'm guzzling my tea, thinking about the fancy house. Meanwhile, down in the cookhouse, we've got yet to work out what would be my fancy cookhouse. Don't know. But down in the cookhouse, we've got the next little instalment of the bread making. It's sometime later, and I've mixed the ingredients together. I have kneaded it for 15 minutes. Now, ordinarily, as I said earlier, I would leave it to prove for about 2 hours, then knock it back, knead it for about a minute, and then put it back into a tin, or put it into a tin, not back into a tin, just into the tin, and let it rise again for I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour. And then in that time, make sure that the oven is really hot, and then stick it in the oven for about 20 minutes. However, time is against me this evening. I've done this before. It is a shortcut, I admit, and it's not the best way of doing it. And the bread doesn't always become the best or the most tasty. And in fact, probably better to have just left it prove all night long and then do this process tomorrow evening. But I won't be lighting the essie for 24 hours. So I didn't want to wait that long because I want a loaf of bread. I want a few slices of bread in the morning. So I have put it in the tin here, as you can see, after kneading it. Now I shall leave that for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. It probably will rise significantly, and then I will put it into a very hot oven and cook it. As I say, won't be the best way of doing it, and people will criticize me, I'm sure, but for this particular loaf, just so I have something in the morning, I've done it before. It works perfectly well, assuming I've got all the ingredients in the right order and everything else. I can't see why it won't. And the kitchen is nice and warm, so we'll come back and we'll stick it in the oven and we'll see what it looks like at the end. So we'll be back with the next bit. It doesn't all go to plan, in actual fact. Don't want to give the game away, but we'll see if the results come out and see if somebody is inspired to do likewise. Coming up. Now, one of the things I want to make this as English as possible. And there was a time in my mind when England pulled together more than any other time. And I thought it would be interesting to chart a period of history through photographs. And so I've got a number of books with a number of interesting photographs in them, and I thought we could look at those and just talk about it. And it's almost a sort of, do you remember, or do you have members in your family that remember, particularly this thing that happened in England. So during the war, the 1939 war, the Second World War, I forgot what it was called then. During that war, the whole load of stuff went on, of course, and in the early part of the war, we were the target here in the UK, in England, and in all of Britain, and Germany was coming through, and all of Europe, and we were the left standing, and we suddenly declared, no, we're going to have a war with you to stop you being nasty. But in order to prepare for that, we had to go through a number of hoops, and everybody basically joined forces. Now, it's a period of time that I find absolutely fascinating, because I don't think in that way, unless we had an invasion from another planet these days, that there would be any cohesive action from all of the people, because we seem to have mixed up the population from people from all over different parts of the world, and you wonder if they have this land's interest at heart, whereas back in the 40s we were all of the one type, if I can put it like that without sounding rude. So one of the things that we did, we knew that there was aerial bombardment, and this was relatively new. There was aerial bombardment in World War I, but not much, but some. And of course, we knew that the machines of war had been developed in the interim period, and we had bombers, and that's where everybody thought things were going to be bad, that the Germans would come over, and basically we would be sitting ducks. We wanted to get the women and children out, particularly the children, away, and so we had evacuations. So let's have a look at our first picture, and here it is. Our first picture, hang on, I've got to get back into there, I'm pressing the wrong button. Look at that. That is a policeman who's picked up a young girl with her gas box, what do you call that, gas mask box around her in a little case. And I think it's a very iconic picture, in as much as kids are frightened, they don't know where they're going, they're about to go off on a bit of an adventure. Let's have a look at another picture here. This one, oops, not that button. Hang on, I've got different buttons to do different things. Oh, that one's not working. Fair enough. So that picture there is at a train station, I think, and you can see the excitement of the kids about to go off. Now, my dad was evacuated, and he was a similar sort of age, and he remembers it. And he said he was living in Hendon at the time, but he didn't really overly like it. He was a townie, and he went out into the country, and he said that the country guys were not very friendly to him. Now, that that I think this has happened. I've got a number of books. I'm just looking. I've got some books down there. You can't really see them very much. Collection of different books about evacuees. And they had a bit of a tough time. But also some from the West End of London, in which they were in very much poverty-stricken houses. They went away, and then they didn't want to come back because actually they were introduced to a life that wasn't hemmed into houses, but actually out in the countryside, and they were very disappointed. They were treated in many ways better than they were at home. So I don't know if you've got memories of your grandparents. I imagine that most people these days have sadly passed away or have died since the Second World War. There might be a few people out there who remember it, or you may have stories from your parents or grandparents who were evacuated, and it would be fascinating to hear some of those things within living memory. Anyway, I aim to bring in a few more of these pictures that we can look at. I need to sort out my system so I can get it better presented on here. And it would, of course, been great to have some graphics of air raid sirens and all of that. But we will do that later on. Anyway, if you've got some thoughts, or maybe you've got a picture of yourself being evacuated, or your grandparents, and you're happy to share that, it'd be great to be able to share that on the show as we go through that period of history in this little section. So anyway, that's it. Now, we've got a couple more of these, if you can bear it, down in the basement, not in the basement, in the kitchen, looking at the bread. So let's find out how this bread making is going. Well, it's sometime later now, and a few things have happened. My bread rose very well, and I was frightened that this felt dough was going to rise and then slip over the side like it has in the past. And I was using this paper, this greaseproof paper, to lift it up. Unfortunately, that knocked all the air out of it, and it collapsed inside itself, which it can easily do. But that's okay, because I knocked it back and kneaded it, and have let it stand again. So it's a little bit later than I wanted it to be, but it's ready now to go in the oven, and the oven is lovely and hot. So I'm going to shove it in for 20 minutes, and hopefully it will be ready. So we'll see what it looks like at the end of all of this. So all I've got to do now is carefully put it in the oven, which I will try and do with one hand holding the camera. I have to be careful because I don't want it to collapse again. That paper won't burn, which is very lucky. So in it goes, and we'll have a look at it a bit later and see what it's like. Having an Essie is great fun. I love my Essie, and it's fantastic for baking in, as you can probably imagine. The dial on there is quite funny, really, because it says things like cool, warm, hot, and very hot. So you don't have the equivalent of 600 degrees or 250 degrees or whatever the temperatures are on gas and electric. You don't have that luxury. So you sort of got to guess, and then you've got to try and maintain that temperature. And it takes a little bit of skill to do that. We'll see how the bread came out very soon. However, we're going outside now. A little while ago, at the weekend just gone, the lovely Tim and Rachel, friends of ours, friends of the channel, came down. They were busy doing some bits and bobs, needed to get out, and we decided we'll have a bit of a picnic, which we did. Now, I've shown the members of the YouTube channel. We have a members area. I don't know if you spotted that. You're very welcome. You get little extra bits and bobs in advance, and you'll get more as the time goes on. They've already seen little snippet of this. This is a little longer version because Tim brought his power kite out. There wasn't a huge amount of wind, and he's brilliant. He's pulling at the levers and all of this, and then he lets me have a go. I'm not so good. You'll see how crappy I am. And then he lets the lovely Julia have a go, and she, of course, is absolutely brilliant. She can steer a canal boat and she can fly a power kite. Have a watch. I haven't done any kite flying since really I was a kid, or when my kids were kids. Certainly not this type of kite flying. But good old Tim, he is a kite flyer of sorts. And here he is.
Hi Richard, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you, more to the point? You've, what kind of kite is it?
Power kite.
Oh, power kite.
Power kite, yeah.
Oh, good. So when we have the power cuts, we'll have a power
to generate
kite.
some electricity, we'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Oh, wow.
We'll sell it at a massive profit.
Look at that. So that looks to me like it's about 30 foot above your head.
Roughly.
Yeah,
30,
well,
40
roughly.
foot.
Is it an easy thing to learn how to do?
Very.
Oh, why is it every time I was trying it kept falling to the ground?
I don't know, maybe it was not enough wind, that's what I'd say.
Maybe I was just rubbish at it. There is that, of course.
There is that, but I don't think so. I think it's just the wind.
So, just explain how it works.
So right now there's very little tension on the back ones and a lot on the front, which is the red ones, which keeps it, the leading edge where the air goes through, taut. And then you want it to go down, you let those go slack and it collapses the kite and it falls to the ground.
So you've got that then?
Size of it.
That's easy then, isn't it?
That's the general.
And is this the
science
same
behind it.
sort of kite that you can put on a board with wheels and go kite surfing?
It's not really big enough, although it does have a lot of pull.
Oh right, so you'd have a slightly bigger
You'd
one.
have a slightly bigger one, yeah.
Same principle.
So exactly the same principles, but I think you'd have a big one. This is a 2 meter one.
Right.
And if you're going to go kite surfing, it would be, I don't know how big, I don't want to upset the kite surfing community, but I'd say probably at least twice the size.
Right. Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's a good little hobby to bring out on a day. There's not that much wind, is there?
There's not a lot. When it's up, it's okay. Getting it to where it is proved to be a bit of a pain. You gonna have a go?
Oh yes, please. So I'm going to hand you this as I take one of these. I've got one. You need to take that. And I'll take the other.
Okay.
You see, look, every time I do this.
Pull on the right one. Pull on the right one. Left one. Pull on the right. There you go. Pull on the right. Left one a little bit more slack.
Oh yeah.
Now you can steer it. Pull on the left one. Right one a bit more slack.
It's fun though. It is fun.
It's got
legs. It's got to go the other way around,
It's
hasn't
got to
it?
go the other way. So
Has Julia had a go?
Julia's not had to go. No, we've.
Oh, hang on.
That's okay.
That
one over that way. That's fine. But it lifted Joe off the ground earlier.
It lifted Joe, didn't it?
Yep.
Here we go. Are you going to have a go, Julia?
I might do actually. It's quite fun just turning it over and waking it up off the ground.
Yes, not so fun if it lands on your head.
No, I don't want to crash it.
Nope.
But then Tim's crashed it. You
Yeah.
crashed it.
He's crashed it.
Can't be too bad, can I?
No.
Oh, uh-oh. Do I need a pilot's license for this?
No.
So that is that. Thank you.
Pull the right one down.
Right one down.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Oh, like that. Ah, like that.
Got it?
Yeah.
Pull back and it will go up. You don't have to go.
All right.
There you go. Got it?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think, Julia?
I think this is amazing!
Well, saved.
She's got it better than me.
I think that's computer gaming! I think computer gaming gives you good hand-eye coordination for that sort of thing, but
you got
I still crashed it.
But you got your whole body into it, which
I
was...
did.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, isn't it? Putting the whole body, leaning into it.
To sort of
I think
counter
that was
it.
brilliant. I'm so impressed.
I thought I needed a pilot license for a minute then.
Yeah, we nearly had to say goodbye to you and see you in France.
That was fun.
Let's see if we can twist.
Well, there you go. Julia is a natural at that. I wasn't. But there you go. That's fantastic. We hope to go out and about and do more things and bring them into the show. Of course, we're running towards the end of the show. Very quickly, let's find out how the bread did. About 26 minutes later, and the oven is... The trouble with the SE is the oven can get hotter than you expect. You walk away and you think, So it's out, but it's a little overdone. It's a little over, but it will be fine. It will taste delicious. Look at this. There we go. It's a lovely loaf, and I'm going to put it on the pan here so that you can see it. And that will be wonderful. I'm going to let it stand for a little bit, and then I shall try some and let you know back in the studio. It's wonderful to make bread. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. There it is. And I can tell you, it tasted very nice. There's a finished picture of it. There's another version of the same thing. And that's what it looks like. It's a bit thicker and more fuller than before. Now, curiously, had an email from lovely Lynn B. only today, just as I was setting up the show. So where is Lynn's email? Here we go. She says, "Hi Richard, hope you're indoors today." Yes, I am indoors because it's been horrendous. "And not out in this horrendous weather," she says. "You got me baking again. Hearing you talk of your making bread, I just couldn't resist. Best wishes, take care, Lynn." And there is the picture of her bread and some soup that she has made to go with it, which is brilliant. Maybe inspired by the English couple. We did a little bit of soup making the other day, you may remember. Coming to the end now, thank you very much for my afternoon tea with RV. It's lovely to see you. Cheers, everybody. Delicious stuff. And next show, one of the subjects I want to talk about, apart from the Fantasy House and various other bits and pieces, which we're hoping to have as regular features, premium bonds. Have you ever bought premium bonds? Did you ever win? I mean, a friend of mine bought some, and he bought loads of them. He put about £20,000 into them, and he was winning all the time. But I've only got about £12 worth. I don't even know if I've got the actual forms to prove it. Never won a thing. Be interested to know if you've done that. But thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.